Chapter 10. I know we're here to study the Bible. Tom, shut up, study the Bible. Now, this is my favorite verse. Dead flies make a perfumer's oil stink. Gee, let's eat. So does a little foolishness is weightier than wisdom and honor. A wise man's heart directs him toward the right, but the foolish man's heart directs him toward the left. I used this verse, by the way, in one of my blogs when people said, you know, whose side is God on, the left or the right? And I said, well, there is a verse that speaks to that. I quoted this. I don't think anybody likes me anymore. The foolish man's heart directs him toward the left. Even when the fool walks along the road, his sense is lacking. And he demonstrates to everyone that he is a fool. Mark Twain. Nobody knows you're a jackass until you open your mouth and prove it. Just remember that. If the ruler's temper rises against you, do not abandon your position, because composure allies great offense. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, like an arrow which goes forth from the ruler. Folly is set in many exalted places, while rich men sit in humble places. I have seen slaves riding on horses, and princes walking like slaves upon the land. He who digs a pit may fall into it, and a serpent may bite him who breaks through a wall. He who quarries stone may be hurt by them. And he who splits the logs also may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and he does not sharpen its edge, then he must exert an expense more of strength. Wisdom, then, has the advantage of granting success. If the serpent bites before being charmed, there is no profit for the charmer. Words from the mouth of the wise man are gracious, while the lips of a fool consume himself. The beginning of his talking is nonsense, and the end of it is madness. Yet the fool continues to multiply his words. No man will know what happened, and you can tell him what will. And no man will know what happens, and you can tell him what will come after him. The toil of the fool so wearies him that he does not even know how to go to a city. Woe to you, O land, whose king is a lad and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, whose king is of nobility and whose princes eat at the appropriate times for strength and not drunkenness. Through indolence, the rafters sag, and through slackness, the house leaks. Men prepare a meal for enjoyment, and wine makes life merry. And money is the answer for them for everything. Furthermore, in your bedchamber, do not curse a king. And in your sleeping room, do not curse the rich man. For a bird of the heavens will carry the sound, and the winged creature will make your thoughts known. What do you think about all this? Huh?
That's the do's and don'ts.
Well, yeah, but don't focus on that. Focus on the bigger picture. Not so much do's and don'ts, but contrasts. You know, the best way we learn in our human existence, and like it or don't, people will or will not agree with me, but the best way we learn is through contrast. Not explanation, not theology, not didache. It's contrast. Light, dark. You know, it's that easy. If you've never seen dark, well, there it is. You've never seen light, there it is. Good, bad, right, wrong, you know. That's who we are, whether we want to admit that or not, you know, pain or not pain. You know, that's a contrast. Well, not pain is better. So whatever causes pain, don't do it. You know, the brain would figure that out. Don't stick a fork into the electrical thing. Bad idea. Don't put your hand on the hot burner. Bad idea. Although that same hot burner can make you a wonderful dinner. But if you stick your hand on it, then, you know, who's the fool? Well, if it's your first time, you're not the fool, because the world is giving you an incredible lesson on pain. But if it's your 12th time, then I must ask, are you crazy? And people would say, oh, I just wondered if it was hot. It's hot. It's a stove. You know, how many people? You could put, if I put a sign, if I told you, this is the incredible wisdom of mankind. If I told you that there was, NASA reported that there was 958 billion galaxies, 643, very few people would probably question that. The reason is because they don't know, they can't prove it, and, you know, it's got the authority of NASA. But if I put a sign on this door that said wet paint, I guarantee you everybody's got to touch it to see it. Isn't that amazing? You put a sign on here, wet paint, everybody have to touch it just to see. Because they don't believe it, they don't trust it. But if I told you there were 980 billion, 70 gillion galaxies, you go, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Why? I liked one lady. I was in a museum, and it was a cute little lady. She's old, crumpled up, and, you know, about 1 million years old. She belonged in the museum. And she had a sign on this old quilt that was woven, or whatever you do to make quilts, that was sewn together by like the wife of Benjamin Franklin or the wife of one of the early founding fathers. This was up in Boston, Massachusetts, in one of the museums. And she put a sign on it that said, wash your hands immediately after exposure to this. After exposure to this quilt. And do you know that she never had anybody touch that thing? When she had do not touch up there, oh, feel that material, you know, there. But the minute she put that new sign up, wash your hands immediately if you're exposed to this quilt, nobody messed with it. What does that tell you? We learn in very interesting ways. But throughout, John was the master of this, by the way, of the Gospels. In John, you see his first and foremost is dark and light. This is his biggest contrast right here. And it is evidenced in everybody you ever meet. I can sit here and tell a joke or something, and, you know, Barbara may laugh so hard her glasses falls off, and Kathy's back there going, what an idiot. Not finding it funny at all. You know, well, what's the difference? It was the same joke, wasn't it? You both heard the same words, same emphasis, same everything about it, so why did one laugh and the other not? Think about it. Why does that happen? Well, the reason is it depends on whether you are, I hate to say it, on the right or the left. The left chooses to not use their mind as much as the right. The right sometimes tends to be over critical. They got to know the whys, whats, wherefores, and whens. Sometimes a chocolate bar is just a chocolate bar. You know where those phrases? Sometimes a wave is just a wave. Sometimes I write a letter, dear Kathy, you know, it's so sad to see that you're moving up to Booga Booga, wherever you're going, and I will miss you forever and ever. You've been a great part of our church. Love, Tom. And she looks at the love Tom and says, what does he mean by that? He's married.
You real love.
Is he interested in me? Is he excited? Oh, I was rubbing your shoulders yesterday. So, ooh, let's go to the video. What does that mean, love Tom? Well, that just means that you and I have been friends for 30 whatever years. We've been friends forever. And you are a very important and vital part of my life, and you are now going basically out of it for a time. You know, you're being removed from it, and that's a loss that I don't want. But nevertheless, I realize it's going to happen. You see, well, if you overthink that, then yeah, oh, what does he mean by love Tom? What does he mean? I love you, I do.
I love you too.
But we're not sneaking off to the fort. Because I'm married to Broadzilla. You did what? I would be in the middle of that. Anyway, the left is just the opposite of that. I write love Tom, they go, who cares? You know, he just writes that on there because he's too dumb to write anything else. These guys tend to be a little more permissive in everything. If it feels good, do it. Go for the gusto. You're worth it. That's all over on this side. This over here is watch your P's and Q's. Pay attention to the details. Read the dang instructions, will you? When all else fails, read the instructions. You ever try to put together a gas grill without reading the instructions? Well, you're just an idiot over here. Oh, we'll figure it out. No, you really won't. Not if it's the one that I got. That 5 billion pieces. You know where that came from? That's an old English expression. Anybody know that?
Pints and quarts.
Pints and quarts, you're right. The old English pubs, and the business was so rapid they couldn't keep tally on it all. They didn't have cash registers in those days. So what they did is they just made a mark on a chart. So I'd have a barber here. And what'd she have done? Well, you know, it's 8:30, it's 7:30, it's 6:30, yeah. Barb likes this tip of feet. And at the end of the night, you'd say, what owe you, bloke? And I'd say, well, you know, there's 50 cents for this and $1 for each one of those. You owe me $6.50. And then you'd go, and then you pay it and you'd go. And then they would take the thing and just do that. And we'll start again tomorrow. But you watch your P's and Q's because you don't want to miss one. You don't want to. That's where that comes from. Pay attention to the details. But let's face it, sometimes a napkin is just a napkin, isn't it? It's not a surrender flag. It's not a doily, or if you're Catholic, it doesn't go on your head before you enter the sanctuary. Because all women had to be covered in the old days. So they don't put their napkins on their head. Great. So this is the difference. Now, this is what this man has to look at. There's a fool and a king. Sometimes he sees slaves riding on horses, and other times he sees princes walking like slaves. How does that make sense to this man who has figured out, or is trying to figure out, who am I? He's asking the first person singular, who am I? He's already alluded to, is there a God? And he seems to think there is. But now the discussion is somewhat settled on the fact that God is. But who am I? And who am I in light of this God? Does he really care for me at all? Does he love me at all? Is he interested in me at all? You know, does he worry about my P's and Q's? You think about it. Here's Cucaracha. One tiny little lady in a little town, Winter Park here, in a state called Florida, on a planet called Earth. And we are one little planet amongst 33 million or something like that in our own galaxy. And we got a real dumpy kind of galaxy, by the way. And as far as our galaxy goes, it's like a little star donut thing swirling around. We're way out on one of the tentacles out here, Earth is, in kind of a poor rundown part of the galaxy. So we're really not a whole lot of nothing. That's all according to NASA, and that paint is wet. Don't touch it on the way out. But the point is, our sun is mediocre. Our planet's pretty dumpy. It's the only, well, as far as we know, the only planet that exists any kind of life or exhibits any kind of life, though we have 9 planets. So here we are, floating around on this little dumpy little, you know. Have you ever been to the island of Tonga? It's just out there all by itself in the middle of nowhere.
The island of what?
Huh?
The island of what?
Tonga. It's a little tiny island in the Pacific, but it's way out in the Pacific, you know, and it's not like clustered with other islands and that stuff. And you get out there and you have a feeling of isolation like you've never had before. The only other way to get it is if you're 11 years old, sail your little 18-foot laser out 23 miles and get picked up by the Coast Guard. It was a bad idea. 23 miles out in a little 18-foot boat. Tom Tanner was master of the seas. I was the Victus. Captain, oh captain, my captain. But I didn't realize I was 23 miles out in the Gulf Stream and heading north. I was already like 50 miles. I went out to Lauderdale and I was already up to like Fort Pierce. I didn't know it. So the Coast Guard comes by along and he goes, "Kid, what are you doing? Do you know where you are?" And I said, "Not really, I'm 11 years old." Get him in the boat. So they grabbed my boat and they picked me up and they threw me on the boat and they took me back to Fort Pierce. And called my dad. Sometimes a whipping is just a whipping.
I thought in the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean.
But the sense, I was too young. I was just stupid. I was 11 years old. The isolation of where I was never occurred to me. I sailed out because I love sailing. I'm in my own little boat. I'm the captain of the seas, the high seas. I'm Captain Hook. I'm the pirate. I'm everybody rolled into one at 11 years old.
If you'd run out of gas, you'd know you were alone.
It wasn't a powered boat. It was a sail. There was no power on that boat.
He's telling me stories and I'm like, ow.
It was a little sailboat. And, you know, 18-foot laser. I don't know if you guys remember those or not. They were real popular for a while. They had a single mast and they had a single sail and they had a little zzz, zzz, like this emblem on them. Zzz, zzz, that was a laser. 18 feet and hand on the tiller and a happy sailor.
I can truly say your mom was a saint. You're still
I lost that boat after that trip. In fact, Dad took it away from me. My boat was no more. It got torpedoed. Down she went. But I was not off the high seas forever because Paul Kurt, my next door neighbor, best friend, we hid our money, pulled it together, and we bought a World War II surplus giant rescue blow-up boat. Thing was like 12, 14 feet long and it blew up huge. We could turn it over and use it for a trampoline, like a bounce house before bounce houses even existed. Half the neighborhood kids bouncing on it all day long. And then later, this is after my dad passed away, we took that boat out to sea. Didn't sail like my laser, but you know, you're on the water. The USS Tom Paul, we called it. Tom-Paul. One of the mightiest ships in the Navy at that time. It's been decommissioned since then. We popped it. But What a ship it was. I almost got my first makeout with a real woman in that boat.
Almost.
Well, it was like that close, and Mom, Connie, come home for dinner. Oh, not now. I was that close. First kiss never happened. But it was on board that ship. The USS Tom Paul. Yes, a sailor had a woman in every port, as did I. I have a lot of cherished memories of my childhood. If you said Oduria, oh, that's like license, permission to do anything. Oh yeah, Oduria. Okay. I would have put myself over here at that time. Fortunately, we don't have to stay where we are. And that's the thing he's learning in this chapter. We don't have to stay where we are. If you don't like being here, if you find permissiveness, or i.e. presumed license, a little reckless or dangerous, well, you could move over here if you give it any real thought. There's wisdom coming in. The wisdom in the fool. God turns the heart that fears him to the right, and those who don't, S-H-N-E-S-S, to the left. Those who want license, and it's not that one's good and one's not good, it's just that these are the two perspectives of who we are. One is striving to learn, to do it better, but must be careful not to overthink the project. Sometimes a cherry pie is just a cherry pie. Okay, I bring Kukaracha a cherry pie because I know it's her favorite and she's been sick. Doesn't mean I want to fall in love with her or anything. Okay, it's just a cherry pie. Sometimes a goodbye card is just a goodbye card. Doesn't mean I want to chase you. But, so you got to be weary of this overcritical thing, of thinking it out too much. But, on the other hand, to get over here and to at least begin to question and to ask yourself, am I doing it correctly or the best that I can do? Whereas it benefits myself and others around me, or does it benefit me and I'll just hurt everybody around me? If you ask that question, this is the beginning of wisdom. Now, if you choose to hurt everybody around you, regardless, then we're going to slide you back over here. Because now you're just a self-centered little fool. No man is an island, per se. We all have consequence with one another. All right? Permission doesn't mean, everything may be good, but not everything needs to be done at that time or in that company. You have the right to say anything you want in this United States, right? But there are places where you don't want to say some things. Can you give me an example of that? Yesterday we went to a funeral, right? Would it have been appropriate for me to stand up and start singing Jesus Christ Superstar in the back of the church? Probably not. Now, the Constitution of the United States of America gives me that right. But in the company that was there, in the circumstance that was happening and unfolding, the funeral, the passing of somebody, that's not the place to start getting stupid and being foolish, right? Well, you say, at my funeral you can do that. I don't care, I'll be dead. But there are times when you're in the presence of, say, someone who has remarried. And they walk in, let's say Tim is your second husband. And Bob was your first. And everybody likes Bob. Is it appropriate for me to come up and say, in the presence of the two of you, boy, I sure miss Bob. When is Bob going to come back around? Who is this monkey? No, that's not appropriate. You see what I'm saying? We have the run. First Amendment of the United States Constitution gives me the right to say anything I want. You know why? Because I have permission. But then, if I have common sense, it would dictate, just because you have permission doesn't mean this is the time or place to exercise that right. Why don't you wait till a better time or a better place? Why don't you not do it at all? Why don't you not say it at all? Why don't you not be part of it at all? You see what I'm saying? We all don't like this. Well, let's get out and protest. Well, these guys are bringing knives and guns. Well, you know, I don't really want to be a part of that. That's not a protest, in my opinion. That's an anarchist. If you want to just hold a sign and say, we want a better wage, fine, I'm all about that. But I'm not going to get out there and start causing riots and throwing bottles and smashing window buildings. And you go, well, you're just not a real protester. No, quite the opposite. I am a real protester. I just see the need for a higher wage, but I'm not going to destroy somebody else's property that they've worked very hard for all their life to establish. I mean, I wish I was them. I wish I had that big, nice building and a fine job and a good wage. So smashing their stuff is not going to get me. And that's the difference between a fool and a wise man. The fool has literally, in his mind, has permission to do whatever, whenever, wherever he wants. The wiser man will say, well, that may be true, however, who am I? In conjunction with self. And you must include others, because you're not the only one on the planet. Princes, slaves, free, imprisoned, male, female, rich, poor, ugly, beautiful. Contrast. There's a whole lot of everything, everywhere. And the fool will just say, oh, well, I'll act whenever, wherever, whatever. The wise man will say, wait a minute, it's got to go through a couple of filters before I act. This is the first filter right here. The Christian has a second filter. That's the God filter. You know, we used to wear those things on our arm, the what would Jesus do things. Remember that? The WWJD. And I wonder if it really made a difference. Well, it made a difference to the guys who made those things, because they sold about 1 billion of them. But I wonder if it really made any difference in the life of the people that wore them. Now, it was an acknowledgement, just like Ecclesiastes here, coming to the point, well, if there is a God, and he seems to be leaning that way slightly, whereas before he didn't. He's leaning that way. Well, then before you can consider God in his fullness, you've got to understand what? Who you are. And how the two of you can play together and work together. Well, that means if you're a wise man, given the contrast that he's seeing out there, first I ought to be running stuff through my human filter. The human filter is this: who am I to self, who am I to others? And then run it through the God filter. You think you're doing great here, but what would God think about it? Now, remember, in this case, there's no Jesus involved yet, because that years down the road. But then run it through the God filter. I wrote a blog on my face page a while back, and I put a word up that said God is now here. Or if you read it the other way, it looks like God is nowhere. And I said, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? Well, 90% of people will see God is nowhere. 10% will see God is now here. Same words, same letters, in the same order. Nothing changed. What do you see? Well, these are the two extremes. And I played a little game. I said, look into this, look at this. And then finally at the end I asked a question. Now that you've got it all figured out, go look in the mirror and tell me what God sees. Is He as proud of you as you are proud of you? You see, it's the answer to that second question, that second filter, which will tell me whether you're truly a man or woman of wisdom, or a man or a woman who, and God says also in the Bible, by the way, call no one a fool. Fortunately, we have the word jackass. But it will tell me, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. But it will tell me whether you're a man or woman of wisdom or not. It will tell me immediately whether you're a person who is concerned about me or others or not. It will tell me ultimately whether you are a person who looks to the future as well as the present and is governed by an authority not of yourself or not. This is what Ecclesiasticus is doing in this chapter. He's assessing what people are doing and why. He's watching. And, you know, he doesn't have the benefit of all the stuff we have. He's trying to figure it out based on who God put on this planet. Well, she's a queen, but she doesn't act like a queen. She's a slave, and yet she's riding the horse proudly and dressed fine. What's going on here? And he's looking at this man doing that and this man doing that. And all through this you have the contrast. Well, what is the contrast? Well, here it is according to the Bible. First, everything's under God. Second, are you an idiot under God? Or are you a wise man under God? Well, I don't know. How can I determine that? Well, I just told you. Versus this over here is all for me. If it's good for me, it's good. Period. No grander authority, no real concern for anybody else. Unless, of course, we might get something out of it. This is very Machiavelli. The end justifies the means. This is very Jesus bar Christos, Jesus the Christ. There is no greater love than to lay down your life for your friends. Well, what benefits that? Nothing other than your friends who might live forever. This man's considered the wise man, the sacrificial man. This man's considered the fool, the selfish man. Okay, Ecclesiastes is working through this debate, but he doesn't have the benefit of all that we know, the scriptures and the post-resurrection Christ and the New Testament. He doesn't have that benefit. He's 1,500 years before Christ would ever show up. So he's got to work with what he's got to work with. And he tried everything in life. He tried music, and he tried money, and he tried women, and he tried, wine, women, song, whatever you say. And nothing seemed to work for him. He was still miserable. Well, because he really didn't dive into the deeper question of why he's on the planet. So if you've noticed from the first to the middle part of this book, he's began to study the people. Not so much the stuff, but the people. Why are you you? Why are you you? Why do you do the stuff you do? Why does he do? He does. Proper English here. Oh, I went and butchered the Queen's English again. Why does Tim do the things he does? What's different when Tim does it and when Kathy does it? That's all he's got to study. So he studies you. And then when he's studying you, he says, how would I have done it that way? How would is more fun. But this way is more considered, thought through. She doesn't even do it. So should I write her off? Well, maybe that's the best decision. Right? Saves you a lot of money, saves you a lot of pounds. So we just not do it. Sushi comes to mind here. She likes it with this sauce. She likes it with that sauce. She likes it this way. She likes it in a California roll. She hates it. You and I are on the same bench there. Oh, by the way, I don't like sushi. Just so you know. I've tried it. I'm not without knowledge or experience. I just hate it. So sometimes not doing anything is the best wisdom of all, isn't it?
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're in big trouble, mister. Big trouble. This is not going to look good on your permanent record. You have a small besmirchment. Reminds me of back in no, that's another story. Wow, Tom. He just flew back 45, 50 years. The evidence is speaking against you. Never mind. Anyway, sometimes the no decision is the best decision. But how do you know that? You wouldn't unless you studied her and he, and you see how he does and enjoys and how he makes his decisions. You see how she does and enjoys and honors her decision. And you study them both and you say, well, you know, I like his more than hers, but on the other hand, I'm not really crazy that their focal point of interest is something that I'm interested in. So maybe I just won't at all. A lot of people look at church that way, by the way. I could do this on Sunday, I could do that on Sunday, or I could go to church on Sunday. Well, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, and I'm not a churchman, so I'll just not go. Well, that's the human level. But wisdom pushes us beyond the human level to at least acknowledge a God. And if there is a God, we probably, as much as I want to know about sushi, I probably ought to give a little credence to the Lord. If there is a God, if you believe in that sort of thing. Or if you even imagine that sort of thing. You know, if somebody told me, Tom, we got a beautiful home here, we built it right in the woods, but it might have some snakes in the basement. What do you think Tom would be doing? I know what Carol would be doing. She'd be screaming in fear and running out of the house. And then grabbing me and say, go get those snakes out of the basement. I don't want to go down there. And I would have to, no, that was another thing back at seminary. I was working on this construction crew, and the house burned down, so we gutted it and we were rebuilding it, and I was doing the plumbing upstairs. So I made a hat for myself out of some molding and pipes, and it looked like a Viking hat. And I had a long pipe, and I put nails all the way around it and duct taped them on real good. Put a feather on the back of the thing that I'd found. Because there was 1 million snakes in his house all over the place. And I was hunting one that got up in the walls and that stuff. And Dallas, my boss, came around the corner. Oh, Lord, the words came out of his mouth. And he took a picture. And I have it to this day on the roof of the building trying to fight this giant snake. That would be me if Carol said there's snakes in the basement. Because let's face it, if you're going to fight snakes and risk your life, you got to look the part. That's the theatrics in me. Make yourself a hat out of plumbing parts, a Viking hat. Pipes coming. Had to be there. It's one of those had to be there minutes. Or you just decide, let's buy another house. And not do anything about it. Is there a God? Are you moved in next door to him? Are you going to give him any time of day credence just to find out who he is? You know there's other humans. You live next door to Kathy. You ever going to talk to Kathy or meet Kathy? Get to know Kathy? Probably, yeah, eventually, whether you like it or not. You're going to bump into each other, right? Well, God's on the other side of the house. You're going to bump into Him and get to know Him. Day to day pours forth His speech. Night to night reveals His glory. His verse goes out through the whole of the land, and nothing is hidden from His message. If Kathy were outside your window singing like that every night and day, I bet you'd turn the hose on. Get out of here, you nut lady. Well, a lot of people do that to God. Everywhere I go, I hear God stuff, God stuff, God stuff, church, church, church. The minute you make that decision, oh, buddy, where did you land? Where did you land? And then you write somebody off because they're not significant as you. Oh, buddy, where did you land? That might be the one person to pull you out of the fire, out of the burning house. And if you blew them off, where would they be? Oh, buddy, you got to consider. All right, this is the chapter. He was on a downward spiral, destroying himself and not caring. Somewhere along the line, he met that little child who was skipping merrily to church, going to see his mom and his God, and was happy about it, at peace about it. So the man decided, well, maybe I need to start looking at people and seeing what's out there. What differentiates? Where am I on this scale? Then we'll get back to talking about God. I got to figure out this one first. And that one's second. This is true growth, true pilgrimage of a man from death and darkness and despair to light and glory of heaven, with all around him rejoicing together. That's what we call a pilgrimage. Pilgrim's progress. Okay? Got 2 more chapters left. Mm-hmm. You're going to be amazed how wonderful it ends. A man that went from certain death. Tell him I left. I went home sick. I was just talking.